Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me from Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder.
Good to see you, Nate. I'm on the new laptop. Maybe I sound better, but I definitely look better.
Ooh. New laptop, new year. Any New Year's resolutions?
Um, man, get off my phone more, be more active. Try to reset the dopamine in my brain. I saw a
uh,
TikTok of some guy staring at a clock for 24 hours. I think I need to do that. I think that'd be a good reset.
I don't know that that's any better than just staring at your phone for 24 hours.
No, it's the difference between only dopamine and nothing at all. And so I'd get the nothing at all, complete reset. It'd be a new life.
Okay. That's good luck with that. I I have one New Year's resolution that I do every year. I know I'm gonna fail a New Year's resolution, so I always just say, hey, my New Year's resolution is I'm gonna pick up smoking.
That's funny.
Haven't
That's
succeeded
good.
yet, so you win some, you lose some,
I
folks.
think this will be your year for sure.
All right. Well, we had two major events happen in the NBA in the last week. It's been 2 weeks since we talked, but really, last like 24 hours, we had the Pistons win a basketball game, something that should not bring us as much joy as it is, but here we are. How are we feeling?
I feel great about it. It was a lot of fun. I think it's like the most I honestly it's the most I paid attention to one team other than my own in a long time. Because like you had to watch those games. If the Pistons were on, you're like, man, like, are they gonna lose again? Like, what's that gonna be like? And just like um laughing at Isaiah Livers minutes and whatnot. But honestly, during the middle of the streak, I'd made a video saying like, I don't know what a Pistons win looks like. This team is so far away from beating anybody. But the things that changed is, well, Jalen Duren got healthy, and he
Yeah.
gives them such an inside presence. Like he's like 15 rebounds per game in the past couple games. But Cade Cunningham just started to play like was pretty good, but the Pistons were good enough to like, I'm gonna win these games on my own. In the last five, he's averaging 30 points, 8 assists, 5 boards, over 50% shooting. He looks like that crazy number one overall pick, this huge point guard that can facilitate from anywhere, get his shot over anyone. I think Cade's just looked awesome. That's the biggest piece, even in their losses against Boston and stuff.
I think that's huge because I was starting to get to the point where I was kind of questioning Cade. And I know it seems crazy to question a guy who was hurt his rookie year, kind of limited, got slow rolled into the NBA, and then really hurt his second year. It's like it's not like he's had a ton of time to get better. But I still just, it's kind of questioning. It was like a high turnover to assist ratio. The shooting was a lot of shots and not the most efficient scoring. But the last couple of games, he's really turned a corner and looked really good. Apologies, fighting a bit of a cold here. Trying to hit the mute before I cough into the microphone, but um, I think one of the big things that's helped has been Bogdanovich coming back, that increase in spacing, and like crazy as it is, I mean, Kevin Knox was 0 for 6 from beyond the arc against Boston, but he shoots them. He doesn't dribble into the mid range and then try to, hit that mid floater like a Killian Hayes or try to attack the basket again, like a Sar or an Ivy would. Like actually having someone that's pulling from three, make or miss, but forcing the defense to come try to defend you is actually a valuable skill. Who saw that one coming?
Not me. I'm still not there, really. I'm not sure if Kevin Knox is the story of the game. Um, it is interesting with Bogdanovich. They said they're not going to trade him. People kind of clowned on them for that, but I think they're right in
You
not
can't.
moving him. You can't because you'll never win again. Like he is so important because he is a very good scorer. He can get to 20 points per game. Um,
He can
he's
create
by
his own
far their
shot.
best.
He can
Yeah.
catch and shoot. Like it's a level of competency that hey, if you were looking at winning 35 games and you had a somewhat competent team around Cade, yeah, move off Bogdanovich. He's not on your timeline. You've gotten what you needed from veterans. I I feel crazy saying this, But I really liked what the Pistons did in the offseason. I was a very big fan when we were doing our offseason pods because I was like, all right, bring in Joe Harris. That is an A-plus shooter. All right, we're bringing in Monte Morris, a secondary ball handler, a 40% three-point shooter. And like you put those guys next to Cade, and like it's good. It works. That would be a good plan. And then a lot of this season, they haven't had Monte Morris. Apparently, Joe Harris is just beyond unplayable. Will be with the injuries. I don't know. I was looking back a couple of years. I was probably thinking of a different Joe Harris, this like, or him at a different stage. I didn't realize he was this bad. So not taking the L on the Joe Harris this stock that I was holding, but like we all saw it. We all knew what they needed. They needed shooting and spacing. I don't think it's a coincidence that they hit 43% of their threes in the first game they win.
That's the way to win. That's the way you get there. I mean, previously with no Bojan, with no Bojan, they simply didn't have the 3-point shooting to beat anybody. And you saw that. What's interesting is like heading forward, I actually like if you can trade for even somewhat good bench pieces, I could see them starting to head in the right direction in terms of winning games semi consistently at a rate that isn't like the historical worst. But every like Isaiah Livers or James Wiseman minute makes me want to rip my head off. They have the worst bench in the league by just a massive margin. Um, Alec Burks was pretty good in their win against Toronto, but like the three he took against Boston at the end of that game, did you
Yeah.
catch that out of the timeout? I had tweeted that he should have one of those like neural chips implanted like they do in like Suicide Squad. And like if he ever takes it through like that again, they just blow his fucking head off. Just right there on the court. And I'd like that, but it would be deserved because that's just like Cade was cooking at that point. It's a whole other story. Cade was like 13 to 16, played the entire second half, and he just launched that three. Um,
I
yeah.
I don't think we can ever say it's deserved to put a chip that blows up a man's head in an NBA player. There's
You did not. Oh, if it gets to 27 or 28 straight losses and you take a game losing three after your teammate has had 30 second half points and has made the last like four baskets in a row, I do think death is an acceptable punishment.
I was gonna say, except for maybe like a Draymond Green circumstance where like if you punch one more person, we have to do this.
David Stern would have approved.
Do you, do you think there was something in the league office? Because I mean, the next thing we've got to talk about is the OG, the Knicks Raptors trade. Do you think there was something in the league office that was like, listen, if you guys are going to pull off this deal, it has to be done where these guys can't play against the Pistons. We need the Raptors to lose to the Pistons, and we need there to be some excuse because like we don't. This feels fairly excusable. You're like, the Raptors coming off a back-to-back -3 key rotation players finally had a bench worse than the Pistons. And what are these bench minutes that they're giving? Otto Porter Jr. in the year of our Lord 2023 playing 7 minutes. The bad McDaniels brother, Chris Boucher,
The,
Thaddeus Young.
the bad McDaniels brother. That's so mean.
Listen, one of them is like a defensive god, and
Yeah,
you know, as Shams tweeted out, future depoy candidate.
sure.
Just the most ridiculous tweet for him signing his extension. And the other one's like 0 for 3 against the Pistons in 17 minutes of action. I
Okay.
think
Yeah, that's
I think
fair.
the bad McDaniels brother is a valid thing to say at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the perfect storm, and, I mean, it wasn't a hot take, but I had said, like, "Come on, like, the Pistons are winning this one, they're playing well enough." The Raptors, first, aren't that good. Secondly, they're down OG and the rest of, like, Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn, and, like, it's the perfect timing for the Pistons to finally win a basketball game. How did you feel about the OG trade?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm I'm firmly in the camp that the Knicks stole this trade. I I
Okay.
don't I don't understand people who have any other takeaway from this because OG is the perfect defensive 3-and-D component that will work really nicely with the Knicks. Like he does the thing that you wanted Barrett to do, which is play defense against the other team's best, really 1 through 3.5, like 1 through 4. Um, and then space the floor. Like part of the reasons why the Knicks offense has been so bad is Barrett is just trash in the half court. And if you've got him out there, you can help off of him and not be worried about him doing anything. So, like, I think OG is by far the best player in this trade. I think I think Emmanuel quickly is the second best player in this trade. But I really worry because he's a small scoring guard who doesn't do a lot of playmaking. Maybe he just has that like in him, and we'll see it later now that he's in Toronto and kind of be the starter. But he's going to be a free agent this summer, a restricted free agent. Raptors are probably going to have to pay him a fair amount of money. Like, I kind of see this as a little bit of both sides being like, man, we don't want to have to pay our guy. Who wants to pay our guy? Like, who's going to trade for the privilege of paying our guy too much money than he deserves? And I think if you're the Knicks, this works out much better for you.
I'm basically in the same camp in terms of the trade. I don't know if I'd go as far as robbery or fleecing or anything, but I
Absolute
guess
robbery.
I felt like looking at it, OG was the best player in the deal. And the second step, like, okay, well, did they give up a ton of future assets to get the best player? The answer is, of course not. Like a
Yeah.
second round pick, and I actually really like Quickly. I think defensively he's a lot of fun, and then he's just the spark plug scorer, which is a kind of a rare combo. Um, the RJ piece, I just like, I don't know. I could picture him seeing better vibes in Toronto, get to do more what he wants. It's not like the Tibbs like chokehold of like you must play perfectly and no really no room for creation or creativity or freelancing of any kind unless you'll find yourself back on the bench, which Barrett had done quite a bit this season. He's the lowest minutes per game of his career, but I could see there's a chance Barrett breaks out into a better player. That's the one thing that worries me, but as it stands, the Knicks got the best player and didn't give up all too much.
So I see it a little bit, and this will hit home for you. I see it like the Halliburton Sabonis trade. The Knicks are in the the Knicks are in the Kings situation of we have seen how far this roster can go with these players. We can either tear it down, rebuild, or if we're going to go with our guys and try to make this push, we need to give up the young assets and take the guy who is going to help us over the next 3 to 5 years the most. And right now, that is OG Anunoby. And like maybe for the Raptors, quickly or Barrett blossoms in the same way Tyrese Halliburton did, but also maybe not. And like if I have to bet on giving him more creation attempts and that being a good thing, I don't think that's a good thing for Barrett. And if I have to bet on him and Pascal Siakam and Jakob Pertl in the same offense, that seems like a really bad cluster. Now, maybe we're not going to see that because it sounds like the Raptors are actively pursuing Pascal Siakam trades. But I don't know. I've kind of looked into a couple of those trades. I don't think that you're going to get a great shooter for Pascal, unless you're really interested in Buddy Hield. But like, there doesn't seem to be a good trade package where I'm like, oh yes, you're getting Carson Wallace. Maybe Carson Wallace is the guy. Maybe getting him from
Kason?
OKC. Carson?
I don't think there's an
Casson?
R.
Is there not?
I think it's just Kason.
Yeah, you're right. It
Yeah,
is just
but it's one of
Kason.
those. It's a tricky name. It throws you for a loop for sure.
Why doesn't he have an R in his name? What is going on with this?
Yeah, Kason Wallace.
But if I mean, getting him or Isaiah Joe from OKC, now you've got a guy who could help space the floor if a future Pascal trade happens. But like, I don't know. I think this maybe makes the Knicks the fifth best team in the East, and I think that doesn't help the Raptors that much. So it's a big to do about not much.
I think this is just the first domino that's coming. But for the Knicks, I mean, would you rather have OG under a big contract or RJ Barrett under a
OG.
big contract? Right. And so that's where we're at. They essentially just flipped the rights to do that. But I think for Toronto, you're looking at like a rebuild that's finally might happen. If this is a retool, if this is not a rebuild, and this is another retool to try to get 38 wins, Masai Ujiri loses his good GM badge. He traded like I just there's no way you can say what he's doing is reasonable if this is another retool. This has to go into the Siakam deal. This has to go into the Jakob trade. Although that kind of leaves him with no centers. That's a different conversation. Um, you have to tear this down. You can't trade away OG for RJ Barrett and say like, all right, we're gonna retool and keep pushing. Like that's insanity. The Raptors are 12-20. That's terrible. That's a horrible record. Like they're worse than the Bulls, who started the season like imploding on themselves, and now we're playing better um
Well, the
since
Bulls have the
Zach Levine
god
got
Kobe
hurt.
White, and they have
Yeah.
Andre Drummond, who's just suddenly remembered how to get 20 plus rebound games. It's Chicago is has figured out less is more apparently.
Seriously, and it's like if you're worse than the less is more Bulls, who just realize that their stars are actually worse than their bench pieces, tear it down, please. But the Siakam piece is interesting. I love him for the Thunder. I said in the last podcast with Dylan that if I'm trading with the Thunder, I'm not taking the average deal. Like I'm not gonna. I know how much assets they have. I would ask for more, just because like I don't want to be the team that lets OKC build like the Giga Dynasty, the Super Dynasty, the dynasty to end all dynasties, because they have all these picks and these great young players. I'd be like, no, like you owe me. It's like the Thunder tax. I get one extra first round pick just because you're the one making the deal.
Which I mean, the Thunder can absolutely do that. They also can put in enough other just decent pieces to make things work. I feel like that's not the worst thing to like the Thunder are not going to be completely hamstrung and like they'll make deals if and when they ever decide to make deals.
I
I
feel
do
like they'll
want
be
to touch.
hamstrung. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I do want to kind of touch on the Knicks' two other pieces. It's like as a Raptors guy, I've watched a lot of Precious Achua. And I was actually a huge Precious Achua guy coming in the draft. And I was like, he's going to Miami. This is going to be the perfect situation where he's going to learn. He's going to work hard. He could be like the future Bam Adebayo. And then got moved to Toronto. And I was like, this is great. They know how to develop players. They can, they developed Pascal. They developed some of these other like late picks. And he still just hasn't quite blossomed. Um, he's kind of the worst type of undersized stretch four because stretch five, like he doesn't hit a ton of threes, but he does like to shoot them. Um, he's not big enough to like be a rim running lob catcher. He doesn't have the post moves of like a Montrezl Harrell to score down low. He really is a highly athletic and switchable defensive center, but who's not big enough to guard other teams like big centers, and then not good enough to like ever give the ball to on the post. So he is kind of caught in no man's land, and I'm interested to see how the Knicks use him.
I hope they do use him. With Mitchell Robinson going out, their need for center depth is kind of pressing. They're playing like
Yeah,
90-year-old Taj Gibson, and if that just gets rid of the Taj minutes, I think it'd be a valuable signing or a valuable trade piece. Yeah, I mean they filled a hole in terms of backup center. They got the best player. I think that's a win in terms of
yeah.
New York stuff.
And then Malachi Flynn is just an agent of chaos. And like I feel like I watch him play, and half the time, like, oh my god, maybe the Raptors had something with Flynn because he's like getting out there and he's disruptive and he's pushing the pace. And then other times I'm like, dear God, can we just bench Flynn and never play him again? Just send him to Siberia, lock him up, throw away the key because he's just turnover right and left, overly aggressive defense, causing fouls. I think Tibbs is really gonna like him. Like, don't be surprised if he gets more minutes than Emmanuel quickly was getting in some games. Like it feels like an irrational Tibbs love guy.
Just another guy to bury Quentin Grimes in the depth chart.
Grimes, you were in multiple fantasy leagues with me. I have Quentin Grimes, or I had Quentin Grimes in all of them. I've started dropping Quentin Grimes, except for our dynasty leagues, because I'm like, he was supposed to be the guy.
It's over. Nah. I don't know what he did. I don't know who he pissed off. But Tibbs, if there's one thing about Tibbs, he holds grudges. He's gonna remember that shit. He's gonna like, no, you turn the ball over. Minute 40 left in the second quarter, 6 months ago against the Wolves. I remember it. Do you remember it? I think about it every day.
Uh, that would be Tibbs, but like, I don't know. I feel like he's gonna love his effort and his defensive intensity and be like, I don't care that he shot 0 for 8. Like we're putting him back in. I don't know why Tibbs got Southern, but
I like the Southern
it
Tibbs
just
accent.
happened.
I was gonna say earlier about the Thunder. At some point, they are gonna be hamstrung, not by assets, but in terms of salary. Like you can only pay so
Mm.
many of these great players, and so like even if they had the ability to roster the greatest team of all time, um, can they afford it? Because their Chet's gonna get the max extension, Jalen Williams gonna get the max extension, SGA's already on the max extension. Um, Other players who I'm just surely forgetting are gonna be pricey as well, and at some point they have to consolidate, even if it means getting rid of players that are really good.
Well, and that is kind of another problem right now is if they wanted to trade their picks and a player, they don't have good salaries to do that. Davis
Great
Bertans is
point.
at
Yeah.
17 mil. You could combine him and Dort and get up to 32 mil.
Hmm.
But if you don't want to put in Dort, like Misic is your next highest guy that you'd consider trading at 7.7. So like that's 24 mil. What's 24 mil going to get you? Technically could get
Yeah.
you Laurie Markkinen, but it's probably going to get you more like Jordan Clarkson.
At that point, is that even worth it? Is Jordan Clarkson even that guy? I don't think I want Jordan Clarkson minutes on this team. I don't think he fits in at all.
No, no, but just there are other options, and I've actually gone through and kind of made a list of 11 players who I think to various degrees are interesting names to watch for the deadline.
All right,
Do you want to start at the top of that list or the bottom of that list? I ranked
the
them by
bottom,
how good they are.
the bottom.
All right. Evan Fournier.
Awesome. Glad we started here. Fournier is just salary filler at this point. I mean,
Fournier is salary filler. I've seen it's 2 years left on one of the trade things, but I want to say that second year is a team option. So I'm pulling up on Hoops Hype. Yeah. Yeah. So
I'll
right
tell
now
you what.
it's 18.8 million of basic expiring, and the Knicks have multiple extra first round picks. Who do you think they might go after?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what they're gonna do. They're gonna send Evan Fournier and a first round pick to Sacramento for Harrison Barnes. That's the deal. I've drawn this deal up long ago. I had it cooking. Barnes is
That's
better than
mean.
Fournier. Mean to who?
Everyone. Everyone.
Barnes is better
People
than
who watch
Fournier.
basketball. Yeah, because
Um,
Fournier is very bad. If you were saying anything other than Barnes is better than Fournier, we might have to get something looked at. Do you have a therapist? Do we need to talk to them?
no, I think it's a great trade because I mean, any more Harrison Barnes minutes, I'm gonna start ripping my teeth out, and he would be he'd be better than Fournier for the Knicks. Some more wing depth, a savvy veteran that doesn't mind playing 40 minutes a night. He'd be perfect for Tibbs, and we get a first round pick.
Okay, good, good.
That's my.
I
What don't you like about it? I don't understand.
I don't know how that helps the Knicks. I mean, I guess he's a
Barnes is
savvy veteran.
better. Yeah, Barnes is better.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to cash out that chip, you want to cash out that chip for something. I see them more going the like we're attaching 5 first for this, and we're going for Laurie Markkinen. We're
Okay.
we're going for the biggest name
I
out
don't feel
there.
like Markkanen's available. I really
I
don't. I
don't
feel like
I don't think so either. But the Jazz have at least thrown his name out there.
yeah, people keep mentioning like, oh, like he's not gonna want to stay, but like I guess why would the Jazz who aren't gonna sign big free agents, no one's going to Utah, who aren't gonna be able to be in those sweepstakes, like they have this really good player who might just be like, yeah, I'm fine playing here. Just make sure I have the money for it, like the contract's given out. And there's no reason to rush it. Like they're not winning jack shit anyways. He's not good enough to make their lottery odds worse.
No, but he is good enough to fetch them a number of first round picks. Like,
Yeah. It could be anything. It could be even another Laurie Markkinen. The price would have to be good enough because you don't know if you're Utah. Like it's just so hard to maintain guys.
all right. Well, here's what the Knicks can also offer. They can offer Dallas's top 10 protected pick this year. They can offer the Pistons top 18 protected that goes down in protections for like the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know if that one ever converts. So I think if it's like 3 or 4 years down the road, it just eventually becomes 2 seconds. They can offer the Wizards top 12 protected this year, which also has rolling protections. They can offer a Bucks top 4 protected next year. They can also offer their own picks, which historically Knicks picks have been pretty solid. And then a couple of second round on swap rights with Detroit and Washington. Like, they've got some options to give. Does that seem interesting at all?
Sounds like just enough to get Harrison Barnes. But really, I think Markkinen is a great candidate. I mean, he seems to fit in anywhere. Every team could use like the 6'10 sharpshooter that can put the
Yeah.
ball on the ground and whatnot. He's not as incredible as he was last season, at least statistically, but I still feel pretty good about a lot of teams are going to be calling the Jazz for him. All
Yeah.
right, too much time on Evan fucking Fournier. Who's the next guy?
Number 10 is Jordan Clarkson, who I had made a video about
Okay.
a few minutes, or not a few minutes, a couple of days ago. And I had said that he's on 23 million for the next couple of years. That was not true. He's on 23 million this season and then drops to 14 the next 2 years, which I think at 14 mil, that is a nice contract to have around. And like, I'm less worried about age 34 Markkinen at 14 mil as I was at 24 mil.
What could the Suns give up to get him? Is that even possible? The Suns are such a fucking dumpster fire. I could rag on them all day. It's like the worst constructed team in the league.
Um, at 24 mil this season, they'd be looking at giving up Yusuf Nurkic and Nasir Little.
No, see, no, it's like all right, Suns tangent. Worst constructed team in the league. So top heavy, you can't even afford to trade for good players because it would eliminate your entire depth. I can't believe KD's done this shit again. And it's not like his fault necessarily, but I'm gonna blame him anyways. Um,
I'll say it's his fault.
yeah, sure, we can say it's all right. Never mind, it's his fault, and I'm blaming him. He wants to play with superstars so badly because he isn't built well enough. He isn't built for the top. He isn't built to be the guy. He just isn't. He just isn't. He can't be the best. He could be the best player on a title team, but he can't be like the alpha. He can't be like the top guy. So he wants to play with Steph Curry. He wants to play with James Harden and Kyrie. He wants to play with Booker. But when you play with superstars, you don't get role players. You don't get all these elite role players. I know KD goes to Medishbia and it's like, yeah, man, it was me and Steph Curry and Clay and Draymond. That shit was crazy. Can we do that again? And it's like, no, you can't just recreate the greatest team ever built and try to win titles that way. Like it had to be him and Booker and depth. And the fact that they went out and got Beal, which Katie said to do, fuck the team over.
Yeah, I saw someone respond to one of my videos saying like they just need some playmaking. I'm like, oh, you mean like Chris Paul, the guy that they fucking traded for Booker or for Beal? Like, you had playmaking, and now like that's kind of all they gave up for Beal. I don't fully hate it, and I actually think they got better return than they deserved to get for DeAndre Ayton. I mean, Yusuf Nurkic and Grayson Allen, you turned one starter into two basically. But like, yeah, this is what happens when you have these super teams. I also think the Nets won that trade from like an asset standpoint so hard because Durant made it pretty clear that this is where he wanted to go. And Mikal Bridges was the best player they were going to get back. To get Mikal and Kevin Johnson and a bunch of
And him,
first. Mikal,
McHale and him,
not Kevin Johnson. Oh my God, not
Cam
Cam
Thomas.
Thomas,
Okay, Cam Johnson.
Cam
There we go.
Cam Johnson.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of that's the That's back to the basketball Mad Libs where it's just something's coming out. It's like a blank spot, and it's like somebody basketball player from some
It
era.
went from Kevin Johnson to Cam Thomas. It's Cam Johnson. We all know, but like you got both of them, and you got
Mhm.
5 first, and I want to say,
Two
Jay Crowder
swaps.
that? No, Jay Crowder wasn't in that deal. He was
They
traded
got
later for that
everything. They got
5.
everything for that. And the thing was like, all right,
Yeah,
if Phoenix wins the title, it's worth it. right?
Yeah.
That Suns team isn't winning the title. No way. No way is that Suns team winning the title. The thing with the Beal trade is they're not necessarily like they didn't give depth to get him, but they financially constricted themselves to prevent them from ever getting depth ever again because no one is taking on that Beal contract. The Wizards are the
Hmm.
dumbest team in the league for giving him that contract. They are just fortunate the Suns are stupider for taking that contract on. It's massive. It's huge. They are so locked in to this Booker KD Beal trio. There's no they can't even like they're not going to re-sign Grayson Allen. Like they're so financially limited because Booker has a huge his contract goes up. He gets a huge raise in the offseason, and like that eats up what Grayson Allen's contract would have been.
Which Grayson Allen, free agent. Then next year could be struggle to re-sign him. How have you been
They're not
enjoying their
going to.
Chimisi Metsu minutes? I know you're an
You know,
anti-Metsu guy, but Metsu's looked real good for them lately.
we've gotten to the point in the Kings season where our bench has been so bad at times that I've been seeing tweets of like Neemias Queta and Shimezi Metsu box scores. And I'm like, oh my lord. Um, those guys were I mean Metsu okay. Queta barely played, but Metsu was pretty horrendous. I think it's good. I mean, if the Suns won some of those games, maybe I'd care a little bit more. But at this point, they're 16 and 15.
Are you not buying
Can't
into
be.
the Udoka Azubuike hype?
You know what? I saw Udoka Azubuike in college. It was like my first NCAA game, and it was I forget what college you went to, but I was like, that guy's massive. He's gigantic. Um, if you're all in, you can't be 16 and 15. That's just all I'll say. You
Yeah,
can't be all in and have that kind of record.
yeah. But so answer your earlier question. No, the Suns cannot trade for Jordan Clarkson.
No, yeah. All right, who's the next guy?
Next guy up, another Jazz, and this is actually my favorite Jazz
Man,
miss to
just
trade.
picking on the Jazz.
Well, they're like the one of the few teams that's confirmed we
Yeah.
want to sell our pieces, and that is Kelly Olynyk. And I think
Mm.
Kelly Olynyk just fits so many places. I've been pushing to trade him to the Thunder to kind of reunite him with Shea, give them another big man who could play next to or in place of Chet and like still run similar offensive stuff. But at 12 million and expiring deal, this guy is gettable for basically any team.
I mean, he screams like Celtics reunion. Can Denver get him as a backup? That could be something interesting. I'm not sure who they've been running a backup center recently, but um,
DeAndre Jordan.
the Sixers. Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't know if they had decided something different. The Sixers, obviously. I could see the Cavs going in if they're like, no, we're keeping Mitchell, and I want to win games while Mobley's injured. Like, let's go grab him. Um, yeah, I mean that screams contender.
Yeah. And like the Thunder is just it's a perfect piece. But like really 12 million, just for reference, like Mason Plumlee is at 5. You combine him with Amir Coffey and get to like 9. You're there. Throw in one more piece. Like any team could get Kelly Olynyk. And if he finishes the year on the Jazz, what are we doing here, folks? Like there is a lack of centers right now. This man can space. He can play at 4 or 5. Get him somewhere better. That's kind of the end of my like dregs. Maybe not.
Mhm.
Um, Terry Rozier, and I should actually say I didn't have him on this list, but now that Quickly is in Toronto, I think Schroeder might be a very similar player. Very similar on that Terry Rozier, Dennis Schroeder vibes. If
He can
someone
be traded at the
wants,
deadline, right?
yes. And their contracts are also very similar, I want to say, although oh no, Schroeder's making half the money. Schroeder can be traded now. He's past the December 15th
Mm.
date.
So Lakers
Any
coming
interest in
back.
either of those
Book it.
guys? It's like, no. Oh,
Yeah.
actually wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
Schroeder's been
Yeah.
nice.
Schroeder's been nice. It's like we kind of clowned on that. And okay, here's the thing. I think I was right on Toronto heading into the season. Their offense was mediocre. They lost their best offensive player. Now their offense is bad and their team isn't very good. But Schroeder has been better than I anticipated. I expected him to be terrible, but he's been playmaking very nicely. He's confident with the ball in his hands. He gets to the basket. He hits his threes. I mean, he's going back to LA. I can see that already. LeBron liked him. LeBron's familiar with him. Would you rather D'Lo or Schroeder? I mean, it's kind of the piece, right?
Yeah, and I think at this point I might rather have Schroeder, although I'd really rather have Terry Rozier. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention because Rozier's been a little bit up and down. The scoring started off with like immaculate efficiency when LaMelo went down. There's like 8 games of like 50-50-90 shooting splits basically, and then like a 10-2 assist to turnover ratio. He's come back down to earth a bit, but at 29 on $23 million deal for the next couple of years, I think this is the Hornets' chance to like cash out for him and get, I don't know, one first, maybe one second, maybe one first, and like an okay young player. I don't entirely know where I want to see him land. I don't think the Bucks have the salaries. The 76ers have the salaries, and he'd be really nice there as kind of a
Yeah, the
maxi
vibes are too
backup. And
good. I don't want Philly to make any trades. I feel like the vibes are too good.
okay, do you
Here's
want
a
to ride out
question.
with Marcus Morris Sr.?
I do. I do. What team has the worst, as of right now, which team has the worst SRS in the league?
Ooh. Uh, the Pistons?
It's not the Pistons.
Is it the Hornets?
It's the Hornets. I don't know what that says about Terry Rozier. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying his scoring is valuable, but just something to know that the
Sure.
Hornets by SRS are the worst team in the league, and we just saw a team lose 28 straight games.
Fair. Fair.
God, the
Huh.
Hornets have a net rating of -11. My lord.
How are they
20,
worse than? How are
26th
they worse
best
than the
offense.
Pistons? That's
Well,
just.
the Pistons lose close games. The Hornets get blown the fuck out all the time.
I guess that's fair. They do run up and down the court, or a lot.
Looking like they've lost 10 in a row. 119 to 133, 112 to 133, 104 to 113, 113 to 144, 82 to 35. 82 to 135, which is almost the same difference as 82 to 35. I'll be the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. We've not done a good job of actually assigning places for these teams to go. So I'm just going to go back through. Evan Fournier, I say he's going to end up on Utah. Jordan
Okay.
Clarkson, fine. He can go to Philly. Kelly Olynyk, he's going to the Thunder. Terry
Okay.
Rozier.
That's a tough one. I have no idea who would trade for Rozier. I'm gonna go Evan Fournier is going to Sacramento along with the first round pick.
You got a spot for Clarkson?
To have
Or
a spot
Olynyk?
for man, I don't. You know what? Jordan Clarkson's gonna be a bull. Bulls are buying. The Bulls are gonna be buyers at the deadline. That's my prognosis for them.
I mean, they could. They could.
They
He'd actually be
could.
a nice bench piece for him.
Would trading Levine and DeRozan technically still be buying? I mean, it sounds like selling, but it could be described as buying.
It could be. If your idea is to build around Kobe White and Patrick Williams, that absolutely could be buying. Now,
Yeah.
I didn't have Patrick Williams on this list, but he was a guy that I thought they were going to try and move earlier this year because he's a restricted free agent, and it feels like if you don't get him that extension and you're not feeling like you're going to, you might as well trade him now. Any thoughts on Patrick Williams? Who's going somewhere? Or you think he's going to stay a Bull?
I think he's gonna stay a Bull. I feel like when you have a prospect like that, you drafted so like it was like fourth overall, and it hasn't really panned out. It hasn't really worked out. Selling low is kind of the last thing you want to do, and so I feel like the Bulls are just kind of gonna see it out.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking he'd be this year's Rui Hachimura. Like kind of watching the Rui situation and the PJ Washington situation. It just kind of felt like he'd be the next in that line where you're like, are you really happy with Charlotte bringing him back at like 17 mil? But I guess you're probably not happy in Washington trading Rui for, was it Kendrick Nunn? That worked out really well for him.
That's something. That's certainly something. All right, who's next?
Next up, we got a pair of Blazers. We got Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Grant. Grant's deal is an albatross. It may be the worst deal in the league. Um, at what is it, like 40 million for 5 years or 4 more years after this. Jumps up to 40. But right now he's 27 mil, so you could get him. It's just gonna spike up. And then Malcolm Brogdon, a reasonable 22 million for some solid point guard play, ability to play on or off ball.
Could you get man? What's Chris Paul's deal? I'm trying to think of a way for
Chris
the
Paul,
Warriors to get off of Chris Paul's deal for Brogdon.
Chris is 30 million, so you could absolutely do that.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking is the Warriors, and we could talk about that. The Warriors have been abysmal. Um, try to get off the Chris Paul deal for a little more. I think Brogdon's probably just as good, maybe a little bit better at this point in the season. Um, I've liked watching Brogdon in those Blazers games. I think he actually plays really well, but that's why I'm looking. What do you think?
I
Some
like
financial
it.
flexibility.
I like the idea. Um, I don't know if it's enough for Golden State. I feel like they've got that one chip to play, which is the Chris Paul contract, and then probably one of the young pieces. And I don't know if that's enough to get you into a Pascal Siakam deal. But if Kuminga and Paul and a pick get you into Pascal, I think you have to take that gamble. It might ruin the rest of Curry's his chances in Golden State, but right now we know doing nothing isn't going to help Curry's chances. Like I think you got to do something. Dale Davis's son is not enough.
I've liked Trace Jackson Davis though. I really have.
He's
Malcolm
good.
Brogdon and
I
Matisse
picked him up in
Thybulle for Chris
fantasy.
Paul. I know you beat me to
Just
it, you bastard. Um,
like
the
how good
most
is that
moody
going to make
pieces.
him?
I don't. I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like they've just the Warriors are so fucked with this old guard stuff. Not old guards,
Hmm.
but like old guard. Um, they DMP'd Moses Moody last night. Inexplicable.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just don't. I can't. That's unjustifiable, especially with Clay
you
Thompson
can't
going
play
one
that
of
many
11.
guards.
You
Yeah,
can't.
I mean they
Yeah.
really need to move off of Clay because like he was just hurting them.
Yeah. Too off of
I
Clay. Go ahead.
sorry, I had to cough. But like Chris Paul was trying to keep them close in that game. He was hitting in some crazy 3-point shots. He was hounding teams on defense. And Gary Payton in the second, his defense was huge when he started picking up Luca full court. Like you had to play those two guards. You're gonna play Curry, and now you've got limited minutes for Brandon Pajemski, and Clay and like Moody. That's just you can't have six guards in the rotation if none of them can play small forward.
The roster is an abomination. That's just where I'm at. I think they have to. It's going to take longer than they have to cleanse it. I worry that they bought in again with the Chris Paul deal, and because of that, the end of Steph Curry's career is going to be pretty unceremonious in the winning because it's going to take it's going to take this season to get off of Clay. You're going to have to figure out the Draymond thing. You're going to have to figure out all these young pieces. I think we're they're 2 years away from being able to make this into something, even if that's possible. And at that point, Steph's like 37 years old, 38 years old.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is generally how players' careers end. Is they always end more disappointed than they were at the height. Like it's hard to tell people about how good Shaq was when they only experienced Shaq in Cleveland or Boston.
Mm, Phoenix or something. He made an All-Star team in Phoenix, but it's it's
Yeah.
still yeah.
No, it's like why people, it's in part why I think Dwight didn't get on the 75 and 75 team was everyone's most recent memories of him are as a bench player. And like in general, that's what happens. Great players scale down at the end, and you either get super nostalgic and only think of Apex, or you only think of the ending. That's very hard to like think of their entire career encompassment.
With Dwight, or I guess we'll start with Steph. With Steph, his longevity has been incredible. I'll just throw it out there now. I think he'll still be really good, 37, 38, but you're gonna at that point, at that age, you're gonna have to build a team far better than you'd have to right now or last season or something. With Dwight, the reason like it was so unfavorable isn't like the last couple seasons. It's that half of his career was awful. It went from like
Yeah.
basically after Orlando, it was he was the biggest crybaby in the league in LA. He was still kind of underwhelming in Houston and didn't get along with Harden, and then went to this just this team after team, Washington, Charlotte, um, the Lakers. I guess the end was nice. I'm trying to think of the Philadelphia. Like he was beloved at 12 minutes a night on those teams, right?
Hmm.
But when teams wanted something from him, and he's only 30, 32 years old or something, he wasn't good anymore.
You saw the meme of like who would win more, the current Pistons, or I believe it was John Wall, Kemba Walker, Michael Beasley, Dwight Howard, and who else was in that picture that
Blake
was
Griffin.
circulating? Blake.
It's a joke. That's a joke. It's a joke question. That all retired team can't guard a fucking cone. Cade Cunningham would get 50 on him every night without trying. No one's guarding him.
Oh, I apologize. It was not Kemba Walker. He's on the reserves of that. It was
Okay.
Isaiah Thomas. The whole backup is
God.
Taco Fall, Blake Griffin,
Taco Fall.
Lance Stevenson.
Taco Fall
Uh,
is like 26 years old. Why is he getting lumped in with all these guys? The thing, hey, Kemba Walker's averaging 4 points a game in Europe right now. No disrespect. Come on.
yeah, I mean, it's just like the only way to have the Pistons be a worse team is to actually be that team. It's worse spacing. DeMarcus Cousins was the fifth starter, or in that Blake was off the bench. Rajon Rondo was for some reason in there. Like these guys were good players. These guys were great players. Keyword was or were.
Yeah.
Um, but we've segued very far from Malcolm Brogdon.
I'll bring it back. I had a note about Steph Curry just because previous podcast, I think the last time we talked, I said like the Warriors are wasting this awesome Steph season. In the last
Hmm.
7 games, though, 22 points on 40% shooting. Steph has really struggled. I think part of that is being old and having to carry every night is exhausting. And I think at this point it's caught up to him just a little bit in like having to be a super duper star every single game to get wins. But my final trade for Brogdon was Chris Paul and a 2027 first rounder for Brogdon and Matisse Thybulle.
I like it. Can I offer you a Dallas trade for Jeremy Grant? Trading
Sure.
him for Grant Williams, Tim Hardaway Jr., and whatever picks they can possibly offer. I think right now it's a bunch of seconds. Oh no, they could offer their 2027 first. But
Okay. Little
you
Kyrie,
know,
Luca, Grant, big three.
yeah, Grant, mixed bag. I think he thinks of himself as much more of a creator than he probably ever should be, but he's really good defensively. He is a bigger wing, which is something that the Mavericks are desperately going to need. Um, the Mavs fans in my life absolutely hate Grant Williams at this point. Tim Hardaway Jr. has actually been really nice for them, um, but it just that team is not going to go anywhere. They can't play Kyrie, Luca, and Tim Hardaway Jr. a ton, um, and like expect to be a competent defense. Getting Jeremy Grant out there now you're starting to have the makings of a decent defense.
I think I like it. I think I like it. You wouldn't be sacrificing too much depth. And Grant Williams, Jeremy Grant, I really like as the third guy. I think his
Yeah.
his role as the third guy, being like a good defensive wing that can really create his own shot. I mean, he gives Harrison Barnes 45 every time he fucking looks at him. Um, that's sorry. The Blazers beat us a couple days ago. They beat us earlier in the season.
A little bit,
Um,
a little salty there.
No, it's just Harrison Barnes is like our defensive stopper, and he just lets everyone get 50. But Grant is he has the size. Like one thing about him is he's legitimate like 6'8", 6'9".
Hmm.
He's not your shorter small forward. He creates a lot of mismatch problems.
Yeah. Next guy up on the board is Zach Levine. Is there anybody who wants Zach Levine?
LeBron James does. It's a LeBron
Okay.
reclamation project or it's nothing. Either it's the worst contract in the league. I mean, Levine has to play his way out of out of Chicago. He can't just sit on the bench. No one's taking a swing on like the 5-year, $140 million deal, unless he's playing. I thing is like, what are you expecting back from? Because if they want Herter and Barnes, they can have them. If they just want that, they can. I'll take a swing at that point. But the price has to be like only the matching salary. That's the price for Levine. And if the Bulls want
Not even one
anything extra,
first.
no,
You wouldn't consider one
hell
first.
no, way too expensive.
I mean, I think you're about right. I was just looking at the Lakers contracts. It would have to cost them Rui, D'Lo, and Gabe Vincent. And I don't want
It's
to
too
give up
much
that much.
depth. Yeah, it's too much depth, and yeah, I think they've gotten to a spot where they have to play it out, or just wait for
Rui's
a team to
very
get desperate
valuable.
enough. Yeah,
I mean, Rui's valuable to the Lakers. I was thinking maybe the Knicks with Fournier, because an OG, Brunson, Randall, and Levine line does have two of the least likable all-stars the past 3 years with Randall and Levine. But like, I don't know. I do kind of like that. I think you got the ball handling. I think that's a good amount of spacing for Randall to be able to kind of bully ball his way in there. I think that has a little bit of potential. It'd be really great with a Kelly Olynyk to have a spacing five, and but like still even Evan Fournier's deal, which is just garbage. It's just light it on fire money, is half of what Zach LaVine is making. So you still have to put in another piece of value to get him. And like I don't want to do that if I'm the Knicks.
it's the worst contract in the league. We could blatantly rip off Bill Simmons and do a worst contracts draft sometime. Just if we admit that we're ripping off someone else's gimmick and that we're not big enough of a podcast for it to matter. If we had a sponsor, then we have to worry about stealing content. But prior to that, as long as you say I'm stealing this, I think it's all fair game.
Oh, I said I was stealing it when we stole the spinning wheel for like team of the week, which our team of the week 2 weeks ago, you and Aaron forgot to do, was Boston. And I watched a lot of Boston only for us not to be able to record. And so I want
It
those
was
hours of my
Christmas.
life back. As a Lakers,
No.
yeah, as a Lakers fan, I had to watch Boston a lot more than I wanted to. I already had to
That
watch the
was
beat us on Christmas.
it was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan. We just wanted you to watch
What
Boston.
plan?
We said we're gonna make Nate watch Boston film all week.
Screw you guys. All right. Next up, and I don't know how viable this one is. I considered ranking these guys as like least likely to be traded to most likely. But Jared Allen, because I think Jared Allen has a fair amount of trade value. Again, to rip off Ben Simmons, he was mentioning sending him to
Bill
oh
Simmons.
god, why can't I think of it? Don't do this
Sorry,
to me, man.
just
You know what I mean. um, he was mentioning sending him to OKC as a guy, and I don't quite like that, but I do think, hey, him for Evan Fournier, salaries match up perfectly. The Knicks now have a center to kind of go with for this year. Only way you build around small guard is have a top defense. Allen could be a top defensive player. I mean, he's in the DPOY conversation. Um, one, do you think Allen will be moved? And then two, where would you see him go if he is to be moved?
The Thunder piece is great because I think they're the one team like without a center, right? That's the value of the Thunder at this point. Let me look at the other teams just really quickly. I always feel like the Pelicans could reconsolidate. That's like I feel like I don't know, okay, I kind of like Valanciunas. I feel like Valanciunas has his moments, but I feel like he does kind of as an older traditional center, like a post player almost. Someone that's in more in that model. Could you see that being flipped a little bit?
So I don't know that would move Valanciunas for him. But I think Val is 31. Val is heading into free agents. this next year, I'd kind of be looking to see like, hey, can we start looking past Val? What is our future of this team? I think Allen would be a nice fit. And then as far
Mm,
as what they could give up for him, they have endless fucking wings. Like,
mm.
I mean, just the non-star wings, the non-Zion and Brandon Ingram, who are basically wings. I mean, Zion's an
Trey
oversized
Murphy.
three at this point. Yeah, you've got Herb
Oversized
Jones.
is generous. Super sized.
Well, some might call him a
Galaxy
small four.
size
I'm calling
3.
him an oversized three.
That's he's
But
a small 4. He's a stretch mark 4.
God, that's such a mean comment. But yeah, so you got Herb Jones, you got Dyson Dale. Like he's a point guard, but he's 6'8". You got Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall. Any one of these guys would be the second best wing for the Cavaliers. Like Mitchell and Garland are both point guards, and they're trying to make them be a thing. I guess maybe they'd be the third best behind Karis LeVert. But like, Karis LeVert, Max Strus, you need someone out there, and I think one of these guys would have been really nice.
Max Strus has played pretty well. I can't believe the Cavs are
Yes.
winning games though. I just the sidetrack a little bit. Like they're playing Tristan Thompson and George Niang, and they still like they came back against Cleveland, and I kind of pronounced them dead. I have to do my power rankings later today for my possible chairs power rankings, and I
Yeah,
had
people have been
Cleveland like
asking for
20th.
it.
It's someone said it's late. That's not true. It's every 2 weeks. Today's the is 2 weeks on the day. I had Cleveland like 20th because they were already kind of mediocre and with a bad bench, and then Garland and Mobley got hurt. But man, tough on Mobley stock for to see them continue to play kind of fine.
Yeah, I mean, you got the one All Star. You got Jared Allen out there. He makes it work.
Yeah,
Respect him, Cleveland. I don't know. I think they have so much overlap that when guys are missing, it almost clarifies what everyone else should be doing. Like when Mobley and Allen are both there, they're good, but you've got diminishing returns because they both occupy the same spaces and do similar things. And when Mobley's not there, Allen's like, cool, I am the rim running big man. I'm going to be top in the league in true shooting because I'm just going to roll and catch lobs. And then I'm going to defend the paint. I'm not going to be asked to switch out there and take out anyone else. Like, I think they're a team built to survive some injuries to those key pieces in that manner.
I get that. I can see that. I like Allen as just a pure protector because right now, like Zion kind of struggles defensively to guard fours. Anyone faster than I don't know, bowling balls, glaciers,
Hey,
um,
have you ever gone to
stationary
a bowl?
traffic.
Have you
Like
ever
bowling
gone to
balls
a
thrown by
bowling alley
children. Like with the
with?
like the ramp you put at like the front of
Yeah,
the like
yeah.
it's like those ones. Um Zion have a tough time standing in front of it. And so at this point, having like a really nice rim protector would be valuable. Who's the next guy though?
I just gotta say my bit about bowling alleys though, because I am the type of guy who like first game I'm trying to do good, but I really struggle. Second game I'm like, cool, I've kind of figured it out. Let me bowl well. And then like by the end of the second game, I'm starting to get tired. I'm like, I don't really care as much anymore. Um, if we stick around for a third game, that's when just all hell breaks loose, and I try to find a 6-pound ball and see like what's the fastest I can like get the machine to register I threw this thing down. It'd
My
be like a gutter
goodness.
ball, but it'll be like 20 miles an hour. I'm like, yes, I
I
whipped that.
hate bowling. I like sports and I like oh good I don't do you guys have you ever seen a Top Golf?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one of those like 10 minutes from my house. And like that's great. Love golf. I like darts. I like regulars, the pool. Like I'm okay at all of these things. I am
Hmm.
as good at bowling as I was when I was 6 years old. I like and
More or
the
less.
sad thing is, I in my first year of college, I used to have this friend group and we'd go and do bowling night like every like Wednesday or something at like the local bowling alley. It was like college night,
Yeah.
and I bowled every week for like 2 months, and I still no better at it. If I get a
That's
hundred,
sad.
if I get 100, I just can't figure it out. And the sad thing is bowling is, like, expensive now. Like, they used to be like, "Oh, bowling is, like, $10," and I would go, like if it was $10, I'd go and try to get better because 'cause I'm fucking tired of being shit at bowling.
Yeah.
But now it's like a $25 experience. Like, I'm not gonna practice bowling for $25. I'm just never gonna bowl.
So there's a bowling alley near where my parents live. And when my sister was 13, this bowling alley rolled out a kids bowl free all summer program. And it was like very limited hours. It was like before like 4 o'clock or something. But you could take a kid 13 or younger and go bowl for free.
Mm.
You also could sign up for like a bowling pass where like the adults could bowl with them. So the kids would bowl for free. The adults for like $40 the summer had unlimited bowling for those 3 months. The first year they rolled this out, they didn't actually realize, or there was a loophole where you didn't actually have to bring the kid with you. But if you had a kid, you could sign them up for bowl for free and then buy the adult pass for $40 for unlimited bowling for the entire summer. And it was the first year my dad was like retired. My dad retires and unretires like all of the time. He's a little bit old. He didn't have kids till his 30s, so like kind of an older guy, but and he went bowling and would bowl like 3 games a day for like a couple of months. I was like starting to break into the 200s, and then like like threw out his hip or his shoulder, I forget what, and like was like, all right, I guess I'm done with bowling. And I was like,
Man,
that's what it
that's
takes.
that's the life. That's the life for sure. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. At my local bowling alley, it's called Strikes, and it used to be there was like tables. There's like 2 tables and like a
Yeah.
lane, and then they changed the tables to like couches that face inwards. And so I'm
Mm.
like sitting like looking at like strangers. I'm like, why are we sitting at the like why did I pay this money for this table and now it's a couch facing other people. Anyways, change it back strikes.
Ours also has couches, which is really nice if I go with a big enough group, so that way we're like on both couches and can face each other.
Mhm.
But I get what you mean because if it's a random other people, you're like,
It's
hey,
like, "Hey, guys." It's like, "What's going
how's
on?" Okay,
your
next
day?
guy. Who's the next guy?
Next guy. I only actually have two more because we already talked about Laurie Markkinen.
Mhm.
We've got DeJounte Murray, who
Mm.
kind of a disappointing year. Uh, After his last Spurs year, where he was basically a triple double or a was it like 25, 8, and 8 or something with the Spurs. He's basically boiled back down to like 25 and 5, mediocre shooting, not the defensive maestro that he once was. Maybe that's disengagement. Maybe it's still there. Maybe it's not. Um, I'm just saying, DeJounte Murray for Zach Levine, straight up. Pair Levine and Trey Young together. Make it happen.
I think that's the only option. I'm glad you said that because I was looking through the teams and I honestly had nothing other than garbage for garbage. DeJounte's been so disappointing. Watching him, there were moments where he is like craftier, faster, gets to his spots. Like, man, that's a really tough bucket. But more times than not, he's not paying attention on defense. He's letting guys go right by him. He's like not super engaged. I just don't think his role in this team is super clear cut. Maybe it's Trey Young's fault. I love blaming stuff on Trey Young, one of my favorite pastimes. But I'll give the majority of the blame to Dejounte for this one. I just don't know what the best situation is for him. I feel like maybe the best situation was him being the guy on a team that sucked in San Antonio, and that's kind of him translating it from that kind of play into all right, serious basketball. What's my role instead of just doing whatever the fuck I want isn't as fun.
I gotta say, it's one thing to be the guy that on a team that sucks. It's a bad thing to be the second guy on a team that sucks. Like,
That's true. That's what Atlanta's right now. My
like
goodness.
you want to be the guy. It's kind of fun to be the guy. You're like, hey, listen, I know we didn't win for 29 games. I promise I'll get you that wing stop soon. But like if you're Cade, you're still loving life. You're still the guy in Detroit.
Yeah.
To be anyone other than Cade on the Pistons was a rough time, and I feel like that's kind of where Dejounte is like, hey, I'm here too. I'm like second all-star.
Yeah. Yeah, second All-Star. It's an interesting, super disappointing Hawks season. I had predicted them to be like the 4 seed. I was just really into Quinn Snyder, thought
Yeah.
they'd figure it out. And part of it was like Jalen Johnson going down, but also like I can't say why they're bad is their unexpectedly good player is now gone again, because then we're just kind of back to where we were to start. Um, I've never given you credit for this. I think I mentioned in passing in our most improved like breakout pod we did over the offseason, you said Jalen Johnson.
Oh yeah.
And we laughed at you. I'm like, Jalen Johnson averages 3 points a game. That's the greatest pull in history. You should write like a book on Jalen Johnson or something. You're the only person in the world that said Jalen Johnson was going to break out. Jalen Johnson's mom did not think Jalen Johnson was going to break out like you
I had faith. I believed him. I picked him up in like
did.
multiple of our dynasty leagues. I was like, I'm investing in this stock.
Seriously,
Uh,
you were right.
I
He's
I don't think I was
awesome.
the only one. I think he had some. I'm pulling up the splits. I want to say post All-Star game last year. No. All right, post All-Star game last year was still 7 points, in
It
like
wasn't even
17 minutes.
like
I
oh no way. It was who? Like who are you like I don't know who that is. Like I've never heard that name before.
I like my long wings. They start showing me something. I like it. What's
That
interesting is I think I compared him more to like a Paul George last year, or in that
mhm.
offseason pod. I was like, I think he has that potential. Maybe not the shooting, but like a little bit of ball making, ball handling, a little bit of driving, um, just long wings that could defend a lot of people. I don't know that I even saw him being this type of player, which is attacking a lot more. But I mean, I'll take credit. I like it.
I'll
I
give
like.
myself credit for something else. I like last season during like the early parts of last season I came on here and said that Keon Ellis was a great
You
player and
did.
should be playing. And I said that in the offseason I went on Joe Star's podcast, State of the League, and he and I said me and Jack both said like look out for Keon Ellis, and he was like I have no clue who that is. Totally fine. He was like our 17th guy at the time. I'm like no, he's like 6'6" and all defense and he can shoot. And he just has great feel. He has great feel. Not a Jalen Johnson quite type breakout, but still.
I think that's the thing about having anybody who's dedicated to one team or another. Like, and not that I'm dedicated to the Hawks in any way, shape, or form, but when I went on the State of the League podcast, I talked about Christian Coloco for the Raptors,
Mm,
who's been out this entire year with a respiratory issue and still has no timetable
mm.
for return. Um, but like when you have a team and you're that guy, you go so deep on these players, and there you'll be wrong about a lot of them because
Oh
like
sure.
you have this
Yeah.
irrational confidence because he did something good in one game for you, and maybe that's what happened to me with Jalen Johnson. As I watched a couple of late Hawks games last year, and I
No,
really
you're
loved
right
what he
though.
did.
That doesn't matter. You're right.
Yeah, those hits feel so sweet. That is like
Yeah.
the purest form of cocaine, just hitting your bloodstream.
I feel like, I mean, I've been there 1,000 times, and I remember, like, talking to a friend of mine saying, like, "Listen, like, if you are really convincing yourself that the 15th guy in your team is gonna be good, your team isn't that good." Like, your team and I 'cause I'm super into Nevis Keita and stuff, and, like, maybe I've gone too far.
Hmm. Well, to bring this almost back full circle, last guy on the list is the Toronto Raptors, Pascal Siakam. 38 million expiring deal, 28 years old, spicy P. Where could he be next or in March?
I'm gonna call it now. Pascal Siakam is not gonna be traded. They're retooling.
Really?
They're not rebuilding. Masai Ujiri refuses to be bad. They think RJ Barrett is gonna be better than OG, and they're gonna keep going. But if I had to pick a spot, I could think about it. Do you have one in mind?
So, I mean, the two spots that really, there's three spots that get mentioned all the time. There's the Pacers trade for like Neesmith, Buddy Heald, um, and maybe Obi Toppin, another spare part, something to make it work salary cap wise. There is the Warriors for Chris Paul and like Kuminga. That works out cap wise, or Moody, or some piece there. And then there's the Thunder, Davis Bertans expiring deal, maybe Lou Dort bringing him back to Canada, and then just a boatload of picks.
Yeah, it's
Do any of
interesting.
those excite
Siakam's
you?
I like the Thunder one just because they need a center, and Siakam is that. Um, Siakam's interesting. He's 29. He's 29, and he's currently like the worst 3-point shooter in the league, which is a little concerning. He hasn't always been that. Um, it's like he is the hot commodity, like the big prize, but it's also like It's kind of like the huge teddy bears at the festivals, like the state fair. You're like, win a huge teddy bear, and you're like, I don't want I don't want a 40-pound teddy bear taking up half my room. Even if I won the grand prize, like I wouldn't really want that. It's kind of where I'm at with Siakam.
Man, I got to tell you, I was once with a group that won that giant 40 pound. It was a minion. It was like actually taller than the smallest member of our group that went there for that day. So that was pretty fun. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. You do want to win that. You will have a good time if you win that. I
Then I have to think
I think
home
someone's
though.
gonna. Yeah, well, they took it
But
home, and
it's fun to have it, and you walk around the fair, and you're like, "I won the fucking teddy bear. I won the 40." Yeah, you want this teddy bear, and then you get home, and you're just like a dude with a teddy bear. You're like, "This is not as fun."
yeah, I guess I didn't have to take it home. Although, yeah, I do know that they lit it on fire eventually, and that is how it died.
See,
Just like
that's
a
that's
5 foot
that's what you would.
minion. You would light the a Pascal Siakam trade on fire.
Yes. Maybe you could flip him for something else. What's his contract look like? How long is it? Is it
38 mil expires next year, or expires at the end
okay?
of this year. Like
Okay.
it's a very movable contract.
I don't think you're gonna get as much as you think. I think that's the thing. It's like you're offering an expiring deal that's about to get a bunch of money. I just don't think Ujiri is gonna like the assets that are coming back. Also, the OG trade, was that as much as you thought it'd be? I mean, for the last like
No,
3 years, it's been OG costs 4 firsts, OG costs 3 firsts. You better have 6 firsts and your best young player if you want to even talk to us. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly? What a joke. My
yeah,
god.
that's why I'm saying the Knicks got a steal here. Like the price has been super high for him, and we have not we did not see close to that price point. So I think he's going to be moved. I like the Indiana's for like Neesmith or Matherin plus Buddy Hield's contract. I think he'd be really good down there. They desperately need a four man. And as long as they don't give up too much shooting, it makes sense. I don't know they even give up a pick, but like if it's Neesmith, Neesmith will make sense. He's a good shooter. He'll help space the floor long term. And with Scotty, and I mean, you're locked into RJ, but like conceivably, you could start next season with a starting lineup of quickly RJ, Scotty, and Neesmith, and that team now has spacing and playmaking, and would make a lot of sense in my mind. So I don't think they're going to get a multiple pick package. Just you're not going to with the guy on an expiring deal, but I think he's gone. I don't think he's on Toronto come February. I don't know. I don't know what the deadline is. Is it February 14th? No, it's Valentine's Day.
I think like 7th, maybe a week before that.
NBA trade deadline. Nope. Come on. I believe in you. You can tell me what day the deadline is. Google. Google. Key dates for the 23-24 NBA season. Yep, February 8th. And then the
Mm,
All-Star break is the 16th through the 18th. And then March 1st is the playoff eligibility deadline. And that's kind of all the important days.
all right.
So
So we have
that's
basically about a month of this.
yeah, we're kicking off the trade season right with trades and tangents.
Pretty
That's
early trade, honestly, with OG. I feel like last season it was like nothing happened until the deadline.
yeah. I think it might have been the Athletics pod where they're like in the last 20 years we've had like 8 trades in December. Or everyone
Mm,
gets really hyped. Maybe it was not Woj. I don't know, one of those other guys on his pod, and he's like, "Listen, history of December trades. Everyone's like, December 15th, everyone can be traded again. We have like half a trade a year, or like trade
yeah,
every other year. So
it's a good one though. This is a spicy one for sure.
yeah. Well, any other takes, or are you ready to spin the wheel for team of the week?
I'm ready to spin the wheel. Glad you remembered.
Spin the wheel. Oh yeah. Which, as you said, we're not big enough. We can still rip off other people. This is
Mhm.
a blatant rip off of the Saturday Slam and Jam, the athletic thick thing. But
Okay.
like, it's also just a good concept. And we're not
Yeah,
doing trivia with it. I saved my trivia for the off season, where we
that's
also
true.
bring on guests. I also forgot to remove the Raptors and the 76ers. So if we get them, which we
All
didn't,
right.
we got Dallas. We can talk some more Luca, which was just unstoppable in that Golden State game because they apparently decided we don't need to guard him.
It was a bold strategy, but they went for it.
Or I mean, they decided they needed to give him like single coverage, and then any pick and roll he just could easily lob to the Derek Lively all night. But hopefully, we'll see something a little bit different. Maybe Kyrie's coming back. I don't know. Any? Let's
I don't
check
know.
this real quick.
I'm surprised his leg is in one piece after I forget Powell landed on him like that. It looked like his leg snapped into 6 pieces, but then it just congealed back together somehow.
Good. Good to have a leg that's congealed together. Well, Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible shares on TikTok, possible shares on Twitter also, or X, depending on how old you are. One
Hmm.
word, possible shares, and this podcast all the time.
I thought you were saying X is one word, and I'm like, yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
Aaron. X is one letter. You can find me, Hoops Temple at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Find me on TikTok, Nathan underscore Hoops Temple. I might change that again soon. I want distance. I want Hoops Temple to be the pod and me to just
Mhm.
be me. But find us, hit us up, email us. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll catch you later.